Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello everyone, introduce myself. My name is Fifi Elfira. I'm from local Ewan. In this video today, I'm gonna tell you story of Sleeping Beauty. Let's get started. In a faraway kingdom, there was an empire led by a king and the queen. Despite being a king, their life was less happy because they didn't have a child. It made the king and the queen become sad. Then one day, the queen gave birth to a beautiful little daughter named Princess Aurora. The birth of the little princess made the king and the entire kingdom happy. The king was making a big celebration to welcome his daughter. He invited all the people in the kingdom, including all the fairies that live in the kingdom. The king invited them to ask for their blessing, but the king forgot to invite all the fairies in the kingdom. The fact that there were 13 fairies in the kingdom, but the king only invited 12 fairies. When the celebration party was running on, all of the fairies invited by a king surrounded the little princess to give a blessing. One by one fairy was other blessing. One fairy gave a blessing of goodness, another fairy gave blessing of health, and the next fairy gave blessing of beautiful voice, and so on. When the 12th fairy was about to give her blessing, the 13th fairy who were not invited by the king came. She was very angry and couldn't accept this humiliation. The 13th fairy was not giving a blessing to the little princess. The 13th fairy said, when the baby is 16 years old, she will be pricked by a needle and fall asleep for a long time. After saying that curse, the 13th fairy left the palace using her broomstick. Everyone in the palace was shocked and saddened, as well as the king and the queen. And the fairy said, "You not worry. The princess will not die, she just fall asleep for a long time." And another fairy added. Hearing the explanation, the king and the queen relieved. However, they were still afraid of the incident occurred. The king ordered to get rid of all the needles in the palace. Days passed. Princess Aurora grew into a beautiful princess. She was very good and had a very beautiful voice. Everyone in the palace loved her. At the age of 16, the princess entered a small room in her palace. She saw a woman who was sewing. The princess was surprised and asked, "What are you doing?" "I'm sewing. Come here. I will teach you to sew." The woman replied. Princess Aurora didn't know that the old woman is Evil Fairy in disguise. She took a needle in the hands of woman. Then suddenly, she was pricked and fell asleep. When the Princess Aurora was asleep, all people in the kingdom fell asleep too. Then the fairy put her on a mattress. Years passed. Princess Aurora had been asleep for hundreds of years, until the day came a prince from a land approached the kingdom. He saw a beautiful princess asleep there. Then the princess kissed Princess Aurora. The Princess Aurora woke up from her sleep, as well as those that exist in the palace. Eventually, they become lovers and live happily ever after. That's all for me about the story of Sleeping Beauty. Thank you so much for attention. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.